All right. I think this is
All
where we left.
right, so where we left off. Hi, everyone. This is I4CP, the Institute for Corporate Productivity. We're a human capital research firm. We discover the people practices that drive high performance. We do this through our studies, both large quarterly studies on a wide range of HR topics, as well as more frequent pulse surveys. We like to tease out the high performance organizations and what they're truly doing differently from low performers. We do this by studying different HR practices and looking at revenue, market share, customer satisfaction, and profitability. If you go on to, the next slide there, and then even go on beyond the next one beyond that, we're a member-based organization. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to any of the member organizations that are with us today. You see some of just a small sampling of member companies that we have in the community here at I4CP, ranging from very large organizations like Amazon, Nike, Microsoft, Ford, Accenture, and others. You see a broad range of industries represented. We've also got a growing cohort of smaller, high growth organizations, the so-called unicorn companies in membership as well. So again, special welcome to everyone on the call from a member company. If you're not with a member company and would like to learn more, just go out to our website at i4cp.com and we'd be happy to talk with you about that. My name's Tom Stone. I'm a senior research analyst here at I4CP, and I co-host these weekly calls most weeks. And today I'm joined by our CEO and founder, Kevin Oakes. Good to have you with us and saving the day with the slides there, Kevin. Thank you.
No problem. I'm glad I could save you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for that. And then we've got a special guest that we'll be introducing in just a moment. We'll have a great conversation on an important program that they have at their company, Autodesk. But I want to just give a few other announcements before that. As you see here, the upcoming calendar, we've got sessions coming up on the 12th, the 19th, and then we do have periodic sessions, about one per quarter, at different days and different time zones for our friends over in the APAC and EMEA regions. So we've got one of those coming up on the 24th with my colleague, Catherine Brecken, as you can see. If we go on to the next few slides, a couple of quick announcements. We've got a special webinar coming up to sort of fully unveil our AI revolution research. Is HR already behind in that AI revolution? This is our AI and HR study that we conducted a few months ago, and we've been already rolling out some of the key findings to this in various forums and various conferences and meetings. But this will be a full presentation by our Chief Research Officer, Kevin Martin, and my colleague, Catherine Brecken, who I mentioned a moment ago. So if you haven't signed up for this webinar, please do so. It's coming up soon. We've got one of our major studies that's out in the field now. If you are involved with talent acquisition at your organization, with recruiting, if you're in that function, if you know anything about the technology stack that your organization uses, or if you know the person in your company who does, would love to have you or that individual participate in a survey. We've introduced a new feature of our major surveys where you get immediate results. As well, at the end, when we close the survey, you'll get a report with the aggregate data as well. So Zeta has provided the link to this survey over in the chat, and we'd love everyone on the call to participate or forward it to a colleague to do so. And then lastly, wanted to highlight our Next Practices Now conference, which is coming up, as always, in March of each year. So in March of 2024, we'll once again be at the Fairmont Princess in Scottsdale, Arizona. We announced a couple weeks ago for the first time some of the great speakers that we'll have. It's a nice mix of authors, thought leaders, CEOs and CHROs, and other heads of talent areas across HR. We've got more that we're announcing just now. I think the 6 at the bottom right are some of the new announced speakers that we'll have at the conference. So these are ones you maybe haven't seen on this lineup before. All great folks, all great organizations represented. Kevin, anything you want to add to that?
No, you said it all, Tom. But I can't wait. I think it's just going to be a fantastic conference, and hope people can join us there.
Very good. So if you want more information on that, just go to i4cp.com/conference. We're already getting a lot of registrations. We've been getting them all summer. In fact, even before we started announcing the speakers, it'll be a great event as it is each year. So with that, I think we'll turn things over to you, Kevin, to introduce our guest and lead the conversation today.
All right, thanks, Tom. And I'm thrilled to introduce Mike Asbery, who's the VP of People Experience at Autodesk, one of our member organizations. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Kevin, thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Mike, I think probably the thing we should do is just kind of start out talking about you. You've been an HR leader at many organizations, including a lengthy time at Microsoft, but as well as leadership roles at Western Digital, Workday, and other companies. So tell us a little bit about you and your journey in HR, and then after that, we'll talk a little bit more about Autodesk itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So as you noted, I've been at a number of different companies. Microsoft, Western Digital, Workday, and Autodesk are some of the notable companies I've had the opportunity to work at and learn from over the 25 years or so that I've been in HR. My journey, I think, in terms of where I started and what led me to where I am today, there was really a build on the things that I've had an opportunity to experience. So early in my career, I started out in HR technology, really found a love for the applying of technology to people problems and figuring out how to make that work in HR. And so as I went through, I had an opportunity to participate in merger and acquisition integrations. And it was through that I got the opportunity to understand HR shared services. And so that took me down a journey at a number of companies doing HR shared service implementations. And really it was about applying technology, operations excellence, and a service mindset. And it was really at Microsoft, got the first opportunity. I spent 9 years there, but got an opportunity to build out the first global HR operations function at Microsoft. And the thing that I learned so much at Microsoft, but one of the things that I learned there was focusing on employee experience, not cost savings. And so moving from shared services or HR service delivery from a perspective of how do you deliver great employee experiences. And that really helped me with the next phase of companies that I worked at.
That's great. Yeah,
that
was probably before even we were using employee experience as a term, Mike.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah. I think in addition to the employee experience, I think when I got the experience at Workday and at Western Digital, I also had the opportunity to kind of build out more around the consultative capabilities and even more around employee experience. So each of those experiences really has led me to where I'm at today, which is working at Autodesk for the last 3 years. It's an amazing company. I'm leading a team called People Experience, which really combines the capabilities of analytics, design, service delivery, and combining both transactional and consultative delivery, which I can talk more about.
Great. I didn't mean to forward the slide there too prematurely, but I know we've got some data on Autodesk as well, which is a company that I'm sure a lot of people I've heard of, many of them know, but it'd be great to get an update just on what's happening with the organization.
Yeah, happy to. Before I talk about the company, would love to get some reaction from folks on chat. If you are, if you wouldn't mind putting in chat what you know about Autodesk, without looking it up, without Googling it, what Autodesk's products are, what we focus on. Love to first hear.
Yeah, so hopefully I didn't give too much away here by with this data.
I don't think so. We'll see.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I was going to say it could be interesting to see what people say about the products of Autodesk.
Oh, yep. So okay, so no idea, very little, nothing. CAD software. Okay. I had a suspicion. This is why I wanted to ask the question. I think as I'm looking at some of the answers here, I like to say Autodesk is the kind of best kept secret in Silicon Valley as a company. Autodesk makes software for people who design and make the world. So we're a global leader in software for architects, builders, engineers, designers, manufacturers, 3D artists, and production teams. And really, the technology that we are building spans a number of different industries, and it really helps creators and innovators everywhere solve challenges. So if you think about it, from like buildings to cars to machines to rockets to major movie productions, if it was constructed, manufactured, it's a good chance that Autodesk software was used to bring it to life. And so, as I've seen in the chat here, I think when people think of Autodesk, maybe the one product that they're familiar with is AutoCAD. And so a lot of times once you say AutoCAD, people make the connection with the company. But we have software that's used to design and make in multiple industries and well beyond the AutoCAD experience, but it's a really important part of it. So we're headquartered in San Francisco. We have just under 14,000 employees, and we're distributed in 96 offices around the world.
Yeah, it's impressive, the worldwide presence of the organization. I know I've met with some of your colleagues in London. I know you have a pretty good UK presence, but that was part that surprised me, was just how global the organization is as well.
Yeah, we're very well distributed. In fact, we have a roughly equal number of employees spread between EMEA and APAC.
Awesome. Well, I also jumped ahead too quickly on the next slide, but let's turn to it. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about how HR is structured at Autodesk. You know, what's involved in your role, Mike, as the head of people experience?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the people organization, and then my team here that's on this slide. So first, our HR organization, or what we call People and Places, we have our mission is really to deliver an inspiring employee experience for our Autodeskers. And we're organized roughly in similar to a number of HR functions. We have our centers of expertise, we have an experience and delivery set of capabilities, and then we have our people business partners focused in partnership with our senior leaders and divisions, global divisions across the company. In terms of our COEs, we have talent acquisition, total rewards, talent management, L&OD, the common ones, but we're also building out COE for org effectiveness. That is an important part of our model, and we have workplace and travel within our HR organization, which is something that's very helpful for us as we're trying to combine together the experience for employees holistically. In terms of people experience, so the organization that I lead, it's focused on designing and delivering an inspiring employee experience that reflects our company values and the voice of our people. And we have 5 functions, and we've really been on a journey building these 5 functions out in the last 2.5 years that I have been with Autodesk. So we have our people insights function, which is really focused on delivering evidence-based insights. We're building an advanced HR analytics capability really within people insights. So we have data scientists, organizational psychologists, and analytics that are all combined in our people insights team. We have employee experience design is a new team for us, and the way I like to think about this, we sort of reimagine your common HR technology function into a team that's really focused on delivering our better employee experiences across the employee lifecycle using human-centered design and design thinking, partnering with our COEs. So really excited about the work that team is doing. And then it also includes people services, which is your typical global and regional shared services. People consulting, which is a regional service delivery that's consultative. So we help managers and their teams with the common kind of problems or problem solving that you have with like performance management and career development, those kinds of things. And then we have a central team called Thrive, which is focused on employee relations. Number of different functions. What I'm most excited about with people experience in this role that I'm in today is really getting to combine analytics, really thinking about human-centered design in building experiences, and then how do you carry that through in the way that you deliver those experiences in service delivery across the ecosystem to all employees.
Yeah, I agree. I love that how you've combined some things that are often separate in organizations to provide a better experience. And I think the inclusion of analytics there is just brilliant. It's one that I'm sure other organizations could consider going forward. I'm also interested in how you've taken something, pretty mundane like employee relations and have called it Thrive. I think that's also a nice twist to how we look at that. But I'm curious on the people consulting part. What are some of you said this is tackling common issues. What are some of the common issues that, are coming up these days, Mike?
Yeah, so I think uh, the way I look at the people consulting function is if you look at all of the strategies coming out of our COEs, they're really there to enable managers to really adopt those best practices for each of those different strategies, whether it is compensation practices, whether it's performance management and talent management, those kinds of things. So that many companies have HR generalists or HR managers that are either international HR or reporting up through HRBPs. In this case, we've taken that set of resources and we've assembled them into regional consultative delivery teams. And so all of the common kind of concerns and opportunities that you'd have with a manager needing to make sure that their team is performing well, that they understand how to coach, give feedback, that if they have performance management issues they need to address. These are the kinds of things that people consulting is really focused on. And for us, right now, a lot of that opportunity exists in how to get managers and teams working well together in a hybrid environment where we're all very distributed and coming into the office for different reasons, but not in the office altogether. And it presents its own set of opportunities and challenges.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I hear that almost every day these days, Mike, is organizations trying to help managers in a fairly new environment to most of those managers, right? They're not only managing hybrid teams, but just how do you manage hybrid meetings, where you've got people in one location and people elsewhere. And I think the challenges right now that managers are facing are much more unique than they were pre-pandemic, for sure. So it's great that you've got that function that's helping them with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I noticed in chat there's some questions on
some of the other roles in the organization, whether those sit under people experience. So people are wondering if traditional total rewards is part of your team. They're wondering about org effectiveness. They're wondering about HRBPs. So if you could speak to those.
Happy to. Yeah. So the total rewards and org effectiveness and our other, what I would consider centers of expertise, are not part of people experience. So you can consider us more of an enabling and service delivery function or consultative delivery function supporting those COEs. So those are their own functions. And then the question around HR business partners, we do have people business partners that are not part of people experience. That are a separate team that focus specifically on the engagement with our executive leaders, vice president and above, who are managing global divisions. And so our people business partners will really focus on talent strategies and the business and people strategy. And our teams, particularly people consulting and people services, will provide the day-to-day and ongoing support for leaders and for employees in that model.
Mike, let's shift to a topic that we at I4CP have talked and written a lot about, and that's the culture of Autodesk, because that's really what you're doing here is you're affecting the culture through the people experience. And would love for you to just describe a little bit about what the culture is today at Autodesk.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. If we can move to the next slide. I think there's a culture slide there. Okay, so yeah, what our culture is, for me, our culture is really what makes this a great company. It's what drew me essentially to join the company, and I think it is our employees really love working at Autodesk, and it shows through the engagement surveys and our attrition, which is quite low and has been for many years. Autodeskers are smart and creative. They care about the company mission, and they care about each other. And so, especially was true through the pandemic, as our executive team showed through their actions, a lot of care about how we took the employees through the pandemic, and in thinking about the design of our flexible programs that we have coming out of the pandemic. So Autodesk as a company gets recognition for the culture and the importance we place on it, for being a great place to work, and for focus on diversity and belonging, as well as being one of the world's most sustainable companies. And creativity, innovation, and sustainability, they're all part of our ethos at Autodesk. We are creators and builders, and we work with creators and builders who are trying to build a sustainable world. So again, I said it before, but I think Autodesk is really, for me, is like the best kept secret in the Bay Area, and really love working at this company.
And as you think about the culture, Mike, who wakes up in the morning every day and thinks about, how do I improve the culture? How do I make it better? And who would you consider owns that that topic going forward?
That's a good question. I mean, it starts with our CEO, Andrew Anagnost. I think the entire CEO staff at Autodesk is really concerned about our culture, and it's an important topic that is discussed quite a lot at the executive level. So my boss, Rebecca Pierce, who's the Chief People Officer at Autodesk, is obviously very concerned about it, and we're all focused on culture in various aspects of the work that we do in our organizations. But I really think it starts at the top.
Very good. And Tom, I think you have controls now. Is that correct?
Yeah, sorry about my earlier mysterious computer issues, but I think I've retaken over controls of the slides, which is good, because I think we want to pivot now to your hybrid work program, Mike. And I know you gave us a video that will sort of tee that up. So if it's all right with you, I think I'll go ahead and play that video, and then we'll dive into that topic.
Yeah, that sounds great.
One phrase I loved in that video, Mike, was "We are hybrid by design, not by default," and that really resonates with me, because I felt that so many of the policies that other organizations have put into place have been more of a horse trade between certain functions in the organization. Where a lot of times senior leadership wants everybody in the office 5 days a week, 9 to 5, and somebody else wants more flexibility, and so they arrive at a compromise, and that is what it is, usually, is a compromise. Tell us a little bit about how you arrived at your current program.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up about the intentional by design, because I really think we did spend a lot of time focusing on what we wanted this program to look like, and it's certainly evolved over the course of the last couple of years. One thing to note, I think, is Autodesk was already quite flexible before the pandemic. Even before the pandemic, we had about 70. Our employees on average were in the office about 75% of the time, and had about 25% opportunity to work remote, and that varied office to office. But we were quite flexible with allowing employees to work from home, and we were also quite distributed as a company. So that differentiated us, I think, to the starting point that some companies had. And with the pandemic, this really presented us with a once in a generation opportunity to experiment with some of the more radical ways of working, and became a catalyst for us on how we can help the business and our employees really thrive in that kind of flexible work environment. So during that time coming out of the pandemic, or during the pandemic, and as we came out, we really spent a lot of time focusing on what is the new normal. And so some of the areas for us that were really important were individual flexibility. So we wanted to design the program that allowed for as much individual flexibility for our employees as we could make, as well as the ability to work remote and have amazing in-office experiences. So, Autodesk, one of some of our products go into making great buildings and great office experiences, and so that's a part of the company. And if you've ever been inside of an Autodesk office, the aesthetic is amazing, and great places to work at. So we didn't want to lose that either. In some places, some of our employees really love working from the office. So we wanted to have a program that had a mix, and gave us the ability to take advantage of individual flexibility, as well as to use our great offices, and also to maintain productivity, innovation, and connection and belonging at the same time. So those were some of the critical enablers. We launched the program. We call it Flex Forward. We launched it originally in May of 2021. The hybrid first approach, really allowing employees to have the freedom to work remote or from the office based on their individual needs. And then we've continued to listen through surveys and through other means to adjust the program as we've gone along. And one thing I would say about how we evolved, or how we designed the program, is we've really tried to take a holistic approach, looking at physical space, cultural norms, and enabling technology and digital experience that we can create to help make this hybrid first environment work.
Yeah, it's great that you launched this so early too. May of 2021. That was, a lot of companies were still struggling with what to do at that point, and you were able to get ahead of it and launch this, very thoughtful program. Part of that thoughtfulness is how you've designed your offices, and so we're looking at, one design here in San Francisco. But tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, the first thing I just want to note is we have a top-notch workplace and travel team, and I think maybe because of the involvement that Autodesk has with our products in working with building designers and architects and designing spaces, the workplace and travel team has done an amazing job of building our spaces and then redesigning and reconfiguring as we've gone along. So about 26% of our workforce is remote. It's up from about 18% in 2020. So we've really seen an increase in the number of our employees who are working 100% from home. We had to evolve our office footprint to reflect the changing talent distribution. And so historically, our offices were really designed for people coming together to work apart. So you have the people working in cubicles or spaces side by side, and with meeting rooms, etc. But today, through some of that reimagination, most of our office spaces are designed for people to come together to work together. We really focus on the collaboration elements. Over 60 to 70% of our hub office spaces have been redesigned with hybrid collaboration in mind in the last 18 months. A lot of work that the team has put into the redesign of offices. Some of the things we've done is we've invested in more collaboration technology and meeting areas designed to boost like our productivity and our collaboration. We've implemented space sensor technology to help assess how employees use the space. So looking at the sensor to show swarms of activity or how long people stay in certain areas can help our teams understand is it is being utilized in the right way. And one of the things I'm excited about is we've recently implemented a new concierge service for on-site, off-sites. It's called the Autodesk Conference Experience. And so the idea is if we can get teams that would normally be booking for off-sites at resorts or at hotels and using hotel conference centers, if we could get those teams to bring those off-sites into the offices, into one of the hub locations, and if we had the ability to then offer a similar experience to what a hotel conference center might be or a resort conference center might be, that then gives those teams the ability to bump into other employees when they're in the office, to experience Autodesk and in the time that they're doing their offsite. So we've kicked this off in this last year. It involved redesigning conference spaces, configuring conference rooms to be highly configurable, and then also things like catering and meeting services, really upping the game in those areas to compete with what would be outside venues. And it's been really successful so far. We have those Autodesk conference experiences available in San Francisco, Portland, Denver, Barcelona, Munich, Singapore, and Dublin. Getting a lot of positive feedback so far with those who are using. And I think I have some slides here. I think one of them is up for San Francisco, just to show some of the different configurations that we have. This happens to be one of our centers where we have the ability to kind of put together both an informal or a formal kind of meeting space, highly configurable. The next slide is just an example of picture taken of the catering. If we can go to that next one.
Before we go to that, I just wanted to call out to everyone on this San Francisco one. It's interesting because you've got two distinct approaches. You've got the same sort of Zoom screen on front on the wall. I guess one is doubled up there on the right, but on the far end is sort of a traditional horseshoe or U-shaped table with traditional business chairs. And then on the foreground here is the more comfortable looking chairs. But the thing I'd never seen before is those small tables in front of each chair, which makes it possible to be in a comfortable chair and yet still have maybe a drink or your laptop or tablet or whatever placed in front of you instead of sort of fumbling or having it on your lap. So I just think that it's a subtle thing, but I think that's a nice innovation I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that detail out. My team and I just had an offsite at this particular location a couple of weeks ago, and it is a great opportunity to, in a very connected environment, you can move from sort of more formal into that casual environment without a lot of hassle. And yes, there's also, you don't see it, but there's also outlet stands around the chairs as well to help you stay very connected.
Very nice. And yes, we do have a couple of other images. So let me move on to the next one here. You mentioned the catering.
Oh yeah. So and this is just an example. We have catering services really well done, making sure that for those who are, you don't get the resort, right? If you're going an offsite, you don't necessarily get the resort experience, but at least we have the ability to really provide great catering services as part of that as well. So for teams that are going through this Autodesk Conference Experience, they don't feel like they're missing out when they do an offsite in the office. I think that's generally what we're trying.
Now you're making everybody hungry, Mike.
Yeah. Just in another example here, real quick, the Munich in a Munich office, another example of the informal space. And again, these are highly configurable. And just some examples. I think the other thing I just would want to point out is beyond the Autodesk Conference Experience, we really have redesigned most of the usable space in our offices toward different ways for teams to collaborate and to come together. So it's really focused on, there are obviously there's spaces where people can work alone and kind of in a quiet environment, but a lot of the spaces we're trying to really focus on how to bring people together and collaborate.
So I know we're going to learn more about some of the digital tools and other features of this Flex Forward program, but I think we want to pause here for just a moment and ask our participants today on the call just to get a pulse, get a sense of what your sort of return to office or current work model is like at your organization. Is it fully remote? And bracket this, the caveat, this should be only about your employees for whom remote is even a possibility. So if you have manufacturing or retail employees, ignore that population for now. For those where remote is at least a possibility, is your current work model fully remote, fully in the office? Is it flexible hybrid, like it very much sounds like it is at Autodesk? Is it fixed hybrid, where fixed meaning demanding that people come in, say, 3 days a week or specific days in the week? So if everyone could vote here in the poll, which of these descriptions best describes your organization, and then we'll see the results here in just a moment.
I was at a company in Chicago the last couple of days, Mike, doing an event, and I was struck by these full-size posters that they had put at the end of hallways, where it was people in meetings. And so it was kind of giving the illusion that there was people in the office at this particular company, because they're struggling a little bit to get people back into the office. And I'd never seen that before, where you walk down the hall and it looks like there's a meeting going on, but it's just a big poster of people in a meeting.
That's an interesting approach for sure.
Yeah.
So here we see the results, and not surprisingly, flex hybrid gets the most at 42%, fixed hybrid at 39%. Fully remote coming in at 13, and no one on the call today has a fully on-site, again, for those folks where it's even a possibility to be remote. This very closely mirrors, actually, Kevin, the results we saw in early August when we did a pulse survey. For that survey, I have the data here in front of me. It was 41% flex versus 42 today. It was 37% fixed versus 39% today. 9% remote versus 13 today. So the only place in that survey, we did have 8% that said fully in office, and today we don't have any, but that could just be a reflection of the folks we have on the call today. But very, very similar numbers over the past few months.
Yeah, and this is something that we constantly monitor, and we're asking about. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out over time. I think it differs a little bit by geography. So whether, depending on what country you're in, this can differ even within, certain countries. So within the US, different cities, I think, have different approaches to in-office or flexible. And Mike, just being a global organization, I'd be curious what you're finding, from your global offices.
Yeah, we definitely have differences office to office in terms of office utilization and how often employees are coming into the office. A number of our countries in APAC have higher, daily in-office attendance than, say, in EMEA or in AMER. What is important for us is that employees are coming into the office because they feel it's most productive for them, or when being asked to come into the office by their manager or leader, that it's for a purposeful intent around connecting or doing something in person that's going to be of value. So I think what we try to avoid is, and this is why we're not doing the kind of the fixed hybrid approach. We want to avoid a mandate around coming in a certain number of times a week or a month, and then employees come in and sit alone or don't have an connection and wonder why they didn't stay at home. And so for us, it's really about those things: intentional gathering and focusing on employee individual flexibility. And so depending on individual circumstances and different cultural norms in different countries, we will have higher or lower office attendance.
Mike, aside from what I would consider a very proactive approach, but also a very creative approach, I love the creativity that you guys have put into this. I was also struck by some of your technology references when you were talking about in office. And so let's shift to digital experiences. Tell us how you're using technology as part of this.
Yeah, and so this is an area I'm really excited by. making use of technology to help us with this. Then I'll just have a few that I'll point out. First, I'll talk a little bit about Lumi. Lumi is an AI-powered virtual assistant that we launched last year at Autodesk, and is focused on providing answers to questions across all the different corporate functions. And that's one of the exciting things I think about Lumi. It's been a real partnership between our people and places organization, IT, and other corporate functions to have one virtual assistant to the benefit of employees answering any kind of question that they might have that to help them be productive. And so we launched Lumi in the US last year and have since Lumi has gone on a world tour and launched into all of our locations globally by August of this year. Used by over 5,300 employees so far, and answered over 2,300 or 23,000 questions, and really focused on trying to make it easy for employees to get the information they need wherever they're at. And one of the most exciting things I think about Lumi was the work we did in developing the voice and the persona. It was really important to me in the partnership with our IT team that we didn't just have a virtual assistant for the sake of virtual assistant, but it really spoke to our Autodeskers. So we spent a lot of time with a cross section of employees talking about what is the voice and the design for the virtual assistant need to look like, and how can we make it such that employees really love. And so Lumi, I see a lot of potential for Lumi with generative AI coming now, and the ability for us to take use of that technology and continue to build ways for for our employees to get the information they need, and also to take actions, etc. We've also focused on our online experience. So how are we making content available for employees, whether that is content to help them be productive, or personalized news and ability for them to feel connected to other Autodeskers in their region or with the kind of work that they're doing. So we spent a lot of time improving our online experience. That is a journey, frankly, we're continuing to do now. And then just another example is where we are using technology to help our employees not only schedule space when they're coming in the office, but how to connect with others who are also coming into the office, so that they can schedule together, they can find ways to connect. And so this is one example with the Robin application, other technology we're using to help with the office experience around that. So a lot of work ahead, and this is an area I'm excited about. I think there's plenty of opportunity, but these are 3 examples that we've already started with.
Oh, I love it. It's great to see, and I feel like we've only scratched the surface, leveraging technology to make that employee experience better, no matter where you're working. And so it's great to see some of the progress that you guys have made. And this whole Flex Forward program is just interesting from a number of different perspectives. I know you've incorporated global mobility into it, and I would love to hear about some of the key features of the program, Mike.
Yeah. So the key features, some of the things that I think are important about it, beyond just the program design itself, is some of the areas we're putting focus into. So one is gathering guidelines. If intentional gathering is important to us, and want to make sure that leaders and teams are thinking about best ways to gather in person, we really are spending a lot of time with how do we train leaders to effectively make those decisions about when to gather, and for teams to come together, and making sure that we're building that out. We're also put programs in place to support the development of employees, managers, and leaders on just how to operate in a hybrid environment. Some leaders are very effective at managing a distributed team who are not all co-located and coming into the office. And for other leaders, it's a little bit more difficult. And so we're trying to help with giving coaching, guidance, and training for leaders on how do you focus on outcome-based goals and keeping your teams focused on the right things in a virtual way. And that's an important part for us. From a program perspective itself, we've also introduced some new reimbursement options that enable employees to do their best work remotely. Implementing, for example, making sure that we have a home office allotment for employees as they start to be productive at home, and then an annual reimbursement amount for the things that costs that they need to cover working remotely as well. So we have a number of those things that we've introduced.
Mike, if I could, I'd like to jump in here. We had a couple of questions a few minutes ago in the chat from both Candace and Nikki, and they were both essentially asking measurement of impact of this Flex Forward program. I know we had spoken about the impact on in our prep for today on attraction and retention of talent, but I'm also just wondering what specific measurements you've been using to see how things are going.
Yeah, it's a good question, and we are measuring the program we put together. We're working on sort of a mix of metrics that we're monitoring, both in terms of the effectiveness of the program in employee perception around flexibility, around connection and belonging, and then also we're monitoring things like attrition, our hiring experience, etc., and also business metrics like productivity. This was a difficult one for us to really measure around, but we're looking at making sure that this program doesn't have a negative impact in our overall business outcomes. Engagement for us remains strong. We have attrition that has continued to be low, and just a couple of stats I think that might help with this. We've increased our number of applications, so we have 1.6 times more applications for hybrid remote roles than the baseline than the baseline for candidates who are looking for roles that are not hybrid remote. So really seeing a high increase in number of applicants who are interested in our remote opportunities, and that has been consistent since we launched the program. And also from a diversity lens, we have seen 1.8 times the number of female candidates and 1.5 times the number of underrepresented people of color candidates in the US for remote and hybrid roles, based on the fact that we're opening up our hiring opportunity in locations that we hadn't been hiring previous when we were restricted to office. So really great results in terms of the number of candidates who show interest. Our attrition is remaining low, 5.1% attrition for remote employees, and overall, low attrition for the rest of the company as well. So a lot of things that we're seeing that are great. The one thing I think we're monitoring, we're a little concerned about, is we're seeing a drop in employee connection. So in our engagement survey, it's particularly for those who are fully remote-based employees, we're seeing sort of a trending drop. And so we want to find ways to figure out how we can build employee connections more than we have up to this point. But belonging and overall engagement remain strong.
That's not surprising. It aligns with what a lot of organizations we've talked to that either have a fixed hybrid or a flexible hybrid approach or an all remote approach, where, early in the pandemic, productivity might have actually gone up. Maybe it stayed up pretty well for the things that we tend to measure. Connection and work on collaborative projects has maybe lagged or slowed a bit, and that is as you're making the point, a concern for productivity in the future. And so focusing on how to drive that with a hybrid population or a fully remote population can be critical to the future.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a tough one to crack too, because I think employees show high desire for the flexibility, and they love the flexibility. And at the same time, I think there's something about the not coming in to meet in person in the office, at least periodically, that is that is causing a decay in employee connection. So this is something we want to explore more. I mean, it's a combination of what can we do to find ways to make sure that we're intentionally gathering and doing that in the effective ways in the office and bringing people together. But I also am hoping that we'll be able to explore some ways to build employee connection virtually. So, if I'm sitting at home, what are ways that I can meet people virtually without having to bump into them in an office? And are there ways that we can think about how to help employees make friends in a distributed way, which is something I'm excited to explore.
Kevin, I'll let you ask another couple questions in our time remaining, but I do just want to call out, we've had a bit of a schedule change such that I think we've got Rob Cross, our new Senior VP of Research, as the guest coming up in 2 weeks here at Next Practices Weekly. And for those that don't know, Rob is now full-time with I4CP, but he's also the founder of the Connected Commons, and he's a real guru in this space of employee connectivity. And he's been applying all of his research and work that he does now to this modern world of work and this hybrid world. So I think I'd be surprised if we don't touch on that topic and some of the practices that he's seen in our session 2 weeks from now. So I'd encourage everyone on the call, if you're in a similar situation to Mike at Autodesk and you would like the latest and greatest from someone like Rob, be sure to come back and join us in a couple weeks. But with that, we've got about 5 minutes left. Kevin, I know we had a few more questions lined up.
Oh, we could talk to Mike for hours, I'm sure. But Mike, one thing I've noticed for critics of remote work or hybrid work, there was a study going around that showed that remote workers were less productive overall. And what was a little bit laughable is the study was from 2017, and it was one particular audience, a call center in India. And so I love that you just shared a bunch of great stats with us. But as you think about productivity, is that something you guys are trying to measure?
It is something we're trying to measure. It's a bit of a complex one, I think, for us to tackle. I think one of the things that we want to be careful about is thinking about productivity from an activity-based perspective. And we see that with some companies going down that road and trying to really focus on how long employees are, sitting at their computer or how many keystrokes and those kinds of things. We want to try to be careful that that's not our definition. I think, I was reading the research report from I4CP on productivity, and resonates a lot with the way that we're thinking about it at Autodesk. Really trying to find metrics that are more outcome focused and how to measure productivity in that way. And it's a challenge. I'll be honest, we don't have it solved at this point to really understand deeply, but we're kind of taking a macro view first, which is to say, how is our revenue per employee cost kind of doing over time, and like how are we competing there? We're looking at from a productivity and an innovation perspective, we're looking at how do our customers think and the sentiment our customers have on Autodesk as an innovator and as as productivity in terms of the kind of changes they want to see in the software and whether we're doing that. And I think over time we want to be able to put more I think quantitative metrics in place around outcome attainment, goal attainment. But right now, that's really difficult for us to measure. We don't yet have the goal attainment tracking in place to be able to do that.
Is there a particular goal method that you're using internally with your managers?
We are not at this point in time, and that's one of the areas that we're focused on within our talent management COEs, is looking at the way we do performance management. We, as a company, like a number of tech companies, we went away from sort of the performance rating method in the last 5 to 6 years, and are really now focused on feedback and sort of individual goals with leaders and employees. But we don't. What I hope that we'll be able to do in the future is be able to put that into the kind of a program that we can then measure a little bit more quantitatively. Right now, it's pretty qualitative.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I know we're just about out of time, but I want to make sure we have enough time to thank you for joining us and congratulate you and all the great work that you and Autodesk are doing in this area. It's really remarkable.
Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciated taking the time, and thanks for inviting me.
Well, I'll close things out. So thank you to both of you. Thanks, Kevin, for leading the conversation. And I'll echo what you just said. Thanks, Mike, so much for all that you've shared. A lot of folks are chiming in the chat with their kudos as well as some folks who had to jump off early and said that they were looking forward to the recording for the bits they were going to miss. So once again, thanks, Mike. Wanted to also just remind folks on the call, particularly those that might be new, these Next Practice weekly sessions are available for recertification credit hours with HRCI and SHRM. So if that applies to you, I know folks that have those certifications with either of those organizations are always looking for their recert credit hours, whether it's at conferences or webinars like this, podcasts like this. So jot down the relevant program ID or activity ID if that's helpful for you. Otherwise, look forward to having everyone back again next week, and in subsequent weeks. We're always on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. So look forward to having you with us. Otherwise, everyone on the call, hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you.